Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Rewilded Wellness Podcast. It's me, Lydia Joy, your Sagittarian sage, here to bust some dogma. Recently, I shared some things on Instagram about the dogma in the holistic health community and what the opposite of it is, right? So, the opposite of dogma is fluidity. It's staying open to new information and evolution. It's discernment, using wisdom rather than rigid rules. It's embodied knowing, trusting your body's intelligence over external authorities. It's adaptability, adjusting based on what's actually working. And it's curiosity, staying in questions rather than fixed answers. And then I ask people what dogma or things that they've been told they have to do to heal are they confused by? And one of them was, do I have to do parasite cleanses? Which is a great topic. So I figured it was worthy of its whole entire own episode because let's be honest, parasites are being talked about everywhere these days. You can't go anywhere on social media, Instagram, without running into a post about parasite cleanses if you are somebody who's going down all the rabbit holes around your health. Now I had a whole series planned, but this topic came up so powerfully through everyone's questions that I just wanted to go ahead and address it right away. So I'll be picking up that series in the next episode, which is Beyond the Root Cause to Terrain Restoration. And it's going to be good. It's going to be a lot of good stuff in that series. So here's the thing. I have yet to meet a single person who has done a parasite cleanse and it made them all better. Not one. And I've been in this space for years working with hundreds of people through my functional nutritional therapy work. You know, I work with the HTMA, I work with the BiomeFX, a couple functional tests. And everyone tells me almost the same story, right? Like they did a parasite cleanse, and they felt some relief. Actually, not everyone says they felt relief, but some people do. Some people say, I felt some relief for a little while, but then I went back to feeling poorly. So what did they do? Maybe they tried another cleanse. Maybe they worked with somebody else and they also recommended a parasite cleanse, right? And maybe they did many. And, you know, I think that they also think because they keep doing more, it's like this whole thought process of, I just need to be more aggressive, more thorough. It could be coming from them. It could be coming from practitioners. So maybe this sounds familiar to you. Maybe you've been there yourself, caught in the cycle of cleansing, feeling temporarily better, then crashing back down, convincing yourself that you just need to try harder the next time. And I see this pattern over and over again, right? People come to me after doing multiple parasite protocols, sometimes 3, 4, 5 different cleanses over a couple years. And maybe they're spending a lot of money to do it. And the protocols are kind of extreme, right? And then they may be getting sicker with each round. Their gut becomes more damaged, their energy gets lower, and then they start to think their body is fundamentally broken. Now, some people make minor progress with it, okay? Some people actually feel like it helped some, okay? So it's not always just this didn't do anything and made me feel worse. It really depends on the person's terrain and how it was approached, right? But here's what I've realized, and what changes everything is the problem isn't that, if this is you, like it's not that you're not cleansing hard enough. The problem is that there's a fighting the body's messengers instead of listening to what they're trying to tell them. And this is the pattern I consistently see. It's like a temporary relief followed by a feeling worse in the long run, or, a frustration of, do I have to keep cleaning myself out, right? And this feeling of like, do I have to like feel desperate to get better because I'm never clean, right? Like, and then it's just this, being stuck in a hamster wheel of depletion disguised as healing situation. And so I want to challenge um, what we think we know about parasites, about cleansing, and about what it actually means to heal. Because the parasite cleanse obsession isn't just ineffective, it's a symptom of a much deeper issue with how we approach our bodies, our pain, and our healing in this culture. So I want to explore why I feel like this is like a warfare mentality. Not always. I mean, some people are approaching it differently, but if you look at it from a collective standpoint, it's intense, right? It's more of a warfare and it can keep people stuck. Um, and I want to talk about what parasites are actually doing in our ecosystem and how to shift from fighting our bodies to building a terrain that is so vibrant that, imbalances simply cannot take such a great hold of us. All right, so let's try to talk about what's actually happening here because to understand why parasite cleanses don't work the way that we think they're supposed to work, we need to understand what parasites are actually doing in your body's ecosystem. All right, so parasites aren't just, random invaders that show up to terrorize your body. They're responding to specific conditions in your internal terrain and often serving ecological functions that we don't always understand. We don't like that when we don't know everything. Parasites often appear during healing phases to help break down cellular debris and toxins. They're literally part of the cleanup crew, not the problem itself. So when you interrupt this process by trying to kill them, you're interrupting your body's natural healing mechanism. So, from an ancestral perspective, humans have always lived with parasites. They were a part of our ecosystem for millennia, and the obsession with eliminating them completely is more modern, right? Like it's a more Western concept that goes against how nature actually works. So, what parasites are often doing is they're breaking down dead or damaged cellular material that your body needs cleared. They are responding to acidic, mineral depleted terrains where they can actually serve a cleanup function. They indicate areas where your digestive fire is too weak to properly process food. Um, they're showing up where beneficial microbes are missing and ecological niches are empty. They are helping process toxins and waste products that your overburdened detox systems can't handle. They're like the vultures, the decomposers, the mycorrhizal fungi of your internal ecosystem. They have a role, and that role is usually there's something here that needs attention. So the real question isn't how do I kill them, like, right? But what are they trying to tell me? And usually the message is, things like your mineral reserves are too low. Your overall systemic pH is too acidic. Your beneficial bacteria populations are depleted. Your digestive capacity needs support. Your detox pathways are overwhelmed. Your terrain needs rebuilding from the ground up. So, why the warfare approach fails? Like, what do we do? Well, we declare war, we try to carpet bomb our entire ecosystem to eliminate these messengers, and here's what happens. You kill not just the parasites, but the beneficial organisms that maintain balance. You further deplete the terrain that's invited them in the first place, and you never address the root conditions that made the body hospitable to them, right? So, of course, they come back. The terrain has become even more vulnerable and created perfect conditions for recolonization. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not saying we should never address parasites. I think that our ancestors absolutely did during, seasonal deworming and traditionally how they did it. And there's wisdom in that approach, but there's a huge difference between what they did and what we're doing now. Right? Like ancestrally, pre-industry. when people lived in tribes and in tune with nature, they did things a lot differently. For one, they consumed bitters, um, especially in the spring. Um, all kinds of them. We've got dandelion, wormwood, wild garlic. Like I could go on, right? And this is just like a part of the seasonal eating pattern, right? So this is like a built-in support, right? Because it's, part of their daily lifestyle, right? A food-based integrated way. And that supports the body's natural seasonal detox processes and it also happened alongside nature-based practices, mineral-dense foods, the healthier soil, right? Like way different setup than what we have today. So you can even think about like, I don't know, amending the soil in the spring, right? Like if you're a gardener, you go in and you clean up the garden a little bit, you mend the soil, you're adding nutrients, beneficial microbes, organic matter to support the growing season. And you're not just like pouring something down to just like clean out the bad guys, right? You're not scorching the earth to kill everything, right? The modern problem is what we're doing now is completely different. We're taking more high dose, more isolated, more concentrated antimicrobial compounds out of their natural context, putting it into bodies that are so uh I don't want to say dysregulated. That's not the right word. Dysbiotic, right? I just listed all those things that are the problem, right? So we're just taking it out of this natural context and we're doing these like more aggressive cleanses, totally divorced from all these factors, right? Seasonal rhythms. And a lot of times they're also like some kind of strict diet goes along with it, right? Like, and it can be something that further depletes the terrain depending on what approach you're taking. Like there's so many out there I can't even begin to tell you. Um and here's key difference. Like we're trying to do this in bodies that don't have the reserve capacity to recuperate. Our ancestors would have had a different scenario than we do, right? They had a different dietary come from. They had a different nature-based lifestyle. They lived on healthier soil, right? They had a whole different setup. And when they did their seasonal cleansing, their bodies could handle it and bounce back stronger. Most people today are already depleted. Their mineral stores are low, their digestive fire is weak, their beneficial bacteria populations are compromised. So when you add this more, like, I'm going to say the word aggressive simply because that's how it acts in a body that's like kind of not ready, not capable of handling, like doesn't have the resiliency, doesn't have the reserve, right? It's more aggressive, right? And intense, and allopathic in nature, right? So it's going to um feel more aggressive, right? And if you're not supporting your inner terrain, your ecosystem, right? Like your whole self, it could be too much for the body to handle. And you could be doing some damage to things, quite frankly. Some of these herbs are really powerful, and some of them are, going to take out things that you want as well, which, it's not necessarily a bad thing if the gut is already got some balance and stability, but in an imbalanced gut, like you come on, especially with people who have taken multiple rounds of antibiotics in their lifetime, and not to mention all the other things that are damaging to the microbes in the world that we live in. So the paradigm shift is this, like the problem isn't addressing parasitic overgrowth when appropriate. It's that we're approaching it from the paradigm of Western patriarchal medicine, which is about, in my opinion, warfare and elimination rather than ecological balance and support. So I'd rather personally recommend the terrain approach, like building back the terrain. So when you create an environment that has such good reserves of minerals, you're powered up from nature, your voltage is like going up versus down, You are feeding your microbes what they need to be fed, and they're growing. You have a stoked digestive fire, right? Parasites are going to lose their ecological niche, right? Like, there's no cleanup work for them to do because your system is handling everything much more efficiently. So it becomes ecosystem management versus like warfare, right? Um, so I like to see people have work on these things, right? Where, they are increasing their energy, their digestion improves, they're supporting everything to come back up to resiliency and function, and stop being afraid of your own ecosystem, right? Now, I think there's a psychological, energetic layer to this as well, right? I want to go a little deeper because I feel like this parasite obsession isn't just about, you know, like a more clinical thing, right? Like, it's really revealing something much more profound about how we relate to our own power and boundaries. And I think there is an appeal. There's an appeal to parasite cleanses, right? It's really easy to get swayed and convinced that you need to do a parasite cleanse to heal, especially if you're in a pattern of giving your power away to external authorities. There's something seductive about having an expert tell you exactly what's wrong and exactly how to fix it. It's like jumping on a bandwagon with this fantasy that you can clean things up without having to maybe address the harder, more complex stuff like your inner boundaries, your relationship dynamics, or even like learning to trust your body's own wisdom again. And I think parasites can act as messengers about sovereignty as well, right? What if they're actually messengers about our own fears and lack of personal sovereignty? What if they're showing up to say, hey, you're not trusting your body's intelligence. You're looking outside yourself for answers. You're giving your power away. Think about it. If you're constantly worried about things invading your body and taking your life force, it might be reflecting a pattern of not trusting your own inner knowing, difficulty setting boundaries in relationships, fear of your own body's natural processes, looking to external authorities instead of developing your own discernment, feeling like dangerous things can get inside you without your permission. So the deeper work here, the real work, isn't cleansing your way to some perception of safety. It's building the inner sovereignty and the self-trust that would naturally guide you towards what's nourishing and away from what's depleting. And there could be, some kind of a contamination wound, if you will. Like many people, this goes back to early experiences where maybe boundaries were violated or where they learned that dangerous things could get inside them without their permission. This might have been emotional enmeshment where you absorbed your family's volatile emotions as if they were your own, or it might have been growing up in chaotic environments where you never felt safe or contained, or it could have been physical violations or even just medical experiences where your body was treated as something that needed to be fixed rather than trusted. And when this happens, your nervous system develops this deep fear of contamination. You learn that you can't trust your own boundaries, that bad things will get in, and that you need constant vigilance and cleansing to stay safe. But here's what's really happening. You're trying to cleanse your way to safety instead of building the inner sovereignty and self-trust that would naturally protect you. And I think we have like this obsession with physical purity, right? Hand sanitizer, hello, right? Whether throughout, like parasite cleanses, restrictive diets, endless detox protocols, these all become a way to feel like you have control. Like you can finally make yourself safe by eliminating all the bad things. But you can't cleanse your way to wholeness. Like safety comes from building such strong internal boundaries and self-worth that you naturally know what belongs in your ecosystem and what doesn't. And let's talk about relationships for a minute. I see this pattern. I want to talk about like codependency versus healthy interdependence, but I want to talk about codependent for a second. Like, I think we use it wrong. We use codependent to pathologize normal human interdependence. We are meant to be interconnected. We are dependent upon each other. And that's how ecosystems work. That's how humans work. The problem isn't dependence itself, it's when the exchange becomes extractive rather than reciprocal. It's when you consistently lose yourself to keep others comfortable. It's when your energy flows out, but nothing nourishing flows back in. These are the real parasitic patterns that need addressing. And I think that the Western purity paradigm has us believing that if we can just cleanse hard enough, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, we'll finally be worthy, we'll finally be safe, we'll finally be enough. But purity culture is toxic culture. It keeps you focused on elimination instead of integration, on perfection instead of wholeness, on fighting your humanity instead of embracing it. Okay, so back to the terrain approach to emotional health. Just like with physical parasites, the solution isn't to keep purging, say, like our what we perceive as bad emotions, right? Like, or the difficult relationships, right? Or the shadow aspects of yourself. The solution is to build such strong energetic terrain, such solid boundaries, such deep self-worth, such robust inner resources that parasitic dynamics simply can't establish dominance in your life. And when your energetic terrain is healthy, you naturally attract reciprocal relationships. You naturally repel people who want to feed off of your energy. You don't need to constantly guard against contamination because your inner ecosystem is so vibrant that only what's nourishing can thrive there. All right. Now I want to talk a little bit about it, like a cultural astrological context here. I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture because this parasite cleanse obsession is happening within a much larger cultural and cosmic shift that we're all navigating right now. So that we had this major astrological shift back in November of 2024. So it's pretty recent. It was a pretty significant astrological transit of all of our current lifetime, right? Pluto officially left Capricorn after 16 years and entered Aquarius for the next 20 years. This is a tectonic shift in how our entire society operates. So, what Pluto and Capricorn gave us from, I think it was 2008 to 2024, it emphasized authority, structure, hierarchy, patriarchal systems, especially in healthcare. And during this time, these systems were built up and reinforced. But they were also cracked open by crisis. Think about what we witnessed. The pandemic exposed massive inequities in healthcare. Institutional failures became undeniable. And we saw the corruption and control embedded in corporatized medicine. And Pluto amplified all of this so we could see it clearly. This gave us the rigid top-down medical approach where experts know better than your body and follow protocols without question and wage war against symptoms and invaders. And, medical knowledge is gatekept by institutions and individual achievement and authority matter most. And healthcare is profit-driven rather than care-driven, right? So the Aquarian shift now with Pluto and Aquarius, we're moving from rigid hierarchical systems to collective, decentralized, egalitarian structures. So instead of this top-down control, we're moving towards shared power, a community-focused healing. So this means that the collective's well-being trumps individual authority, right? The decentralized healing networks over institutional gatekeeping, innovation and questioning over this like compliance, and just like the standard protocol way, right? Like community knowledge and peer support is gaining value. Prevention and whole system care are becoming the focus. Healing that includes like ancestral wisdom and lived experience. Now, I'm going to talk about toxic versus healthy masculine for a second. I want to be clear here. I will never demonize the masculine. I love the masculine. Healthy masculine energy gives us structure, protection, discernment, and the ability to take focused action. We need that. And the Capricorn era did give us important advances, right? Medical breakthroughs, organizational systems, ways of creating stability. But like any energy taken to an extreme, it became toxic. It became a toxic masculine energy. This like need to dominate, to control, eliminate anything that threatens the established order, right? So toxic masculine energy is about like domination instead of protection, rigidity instead of flexible structure, warfare instead of wise discernment, control instead of guidance. So the parasite cleanse obsession is pure toxic masculine, air quote, healing. I don't think it's healing. So this trying to dominate and control your body's ecosystem through force, right? Now, the Aquarian innovation, right? The Aquarius era is inviting us to integrate both masculine structure and feminine flow and wisdom. Instead of like throwing out all structure, we're learning to blend, right? Like we need discernment, which is a masculine, with intuition, which is a feminine. We need action, which is the masculine, with receptivity, which is the feminine. We need protection, which is the masculine, with nurturing, which is the feminine. So instead of kill the parasites, which is like that toxic masculine, we need to start asking, well, what are the parasites here to teach us? Which is a more integrated approach, right? So instead of like follow this protocol, which is like that rigid masculine, we can learn to trust our body's intelligence while using wise discernment about what supports us. And why this matters now, because this isn't just about parasites. This is about how we relate to our bodies, our healing, our power, and our sovereignty. The people who are ready to question the parasite cleanse dogma are the same people who are ready to step into this new paradigm of health and healing. We're literally composting the old ways and growing something new. So now that takes me to wanting to talk to you about like the composting paradigm. So what does this new paradigm actually look like in practice? Because if we're not fighting parasites, if we're not trying to eliminate and purge everything that we've labeled as bad, then what are we doing? There's a beautiful piece of writing. I think it's recorded as well. I don't know where the written version of this. I've listened to the recording of it multiple times. It's a beautiful piece of writing that she has recorded. Sophie Strand, Sophie, last name is Strand. Okay, and her piece of work captures this perfectly. She talks about how ecosystems heal not by purging pain, but by composting it, nurturing decay so that new life can flourish. And this is such a different way of thinking about healing than we have in the Western paradigm, right? Instead of elimination, we're talking about transformation. Instead of getting rid of like what's unwanted, we're learning how to compost it into something that can actually nourish new growth. So the composting versus cleansing paradigm, think about what happens in a forest. When a tree falls, when leaves decay, when an animal dies, the ecosystem doesn't rush in to eliminate and cleanse away the mess. Instead, what happens? Fungi, bacteria, insects, and other decomposers break everything down and they turn it into rich soil that feeds new life. The forest composts its challenges into fertility. But our Western purity paradigm has taught us the opposite. Whether we're talking about physical health, emotional health, spiritual growth, we've been trained to think that healing means elimination. Like physically, cleanse all the bad things from your body, emotionally, purge negative feelings and traumatic memories, spiritually, eliminate ego, eliminate your shadow, get rid of human messiness. relationally, cut out all toxic people, right? Okay, so I would propose we look at integration versus elimination. What if our difficulties, including parasites, aren't contaminants to be contaminant? What's the word I'm trying to say here? Contaminants to be expelled, but raw material for transformation. What if they're actually composting material that, when properly tended, can become the foundation for deeper health? This doesn't mean we become passive or we accept harm. It means we learn the difference between tending and fighting, between transformation and elimination. So, what is practical composting in health, right? Like in my work, um, with functional nutritional therapy, I use 2 core tests. I use more than that, but those are the 2 core ones I use are hair tissue mineral analysis. So this is the minerals piece. And I use the BiomeFX genome sequencing stool analysis. This is the microbes piece, right? So this is exactly what we're doing is composting. We're not trying to sterilize the gut or detox out all the metals, hurry up, let's do this yesterday, or eliminate all the bad bacteria. We're creating conditions where beneficial organisms can transform waste into nourishment, where the problematic elements become food for what's beneficial. And when you build your mineral reserves back, you're giving your body the tools to compost cellular debris effectively, right? When you support those beneficial microbes, you're strengthening your body's natural composting crew. And when you eat more seasonally, you're working with natural cycles of breakdown and renewal. So there is an emotional and spiritual parallel here. Like this works on every level. Instead of, trying to cleanse away our trauma, we learn to compost it into wisdom. Instead of eliminating our shadow aspects, right? We transform them into integrated wholeness. Instead of cutting out everyone who triggers you, you learn to compost those triggers into stronger boundaries and clearer self-knowledge. Okay, so there's a generative metaphor here, right? The composting metaphor makes healing feel generative rather than depleting. Instead of constantly losing parts of yourself through elimination, you're constantly gaining richness through transformation. Your wounds become wisdom. Your challenges become compost for new growth. Your parasites become messengers pointing you toward what needs tending in your inner ecosystem. All right, so how do you actually make this shift from cleansing to composting, from warfare to terrain building? I'll just give you a little bit of practicality here before we wrap up. So the first thing is an immediate mindset shift, right? Like the next time you hear about a parasite cleanse or feel the urge to eliminate something from your body, like do some kind of elimination protocol, right? Pause and ask yourself, okay, what is this thing I'm trying to eliminate maybe trying to tell me about what's going on in my body? Is it some kind of messenger? Is there something to this? Like, why is it here? What's going on? What foundational support does my body actually need right now? Am I approaching this from fear and control or from curiosity and care? And what would it look like to tend my ecosystem instead of fighting it? So, you can start building your terrain from the ground up, right? Like focus on mineral dense foods, building back your mineral reserves. Your body needs these foundational building blocks to create inhospitable terrain for imbalances. I do have my Mineral Foundations course. It's a mini course. It's a great place to start for those of you who have no idea where to start. And I teach it from a Maslow's hierarchy of needs perspective. So we take the fear out and we're just building that foundation. And then just learning what it takes to support your beneficial microbes, right? Like plant foods, diversity, figuring out what is damaging your microbiome and stop doing it, right? Like remove the habits and the things that are harmful to your microbiome and increase the things that are beneficial to it. I have multiple podcast episodes on this if you want to go back and check them out. Every one of us could stand to strengthen our digestive fire. There's a lot of ways you can do this. I love bitters. Bitters are one of my favorites. But there's a lot. You can find the right food combining that works for you and your body right now. You can eat in alignment with the seasons and your body's rhythms. There's so much you can do to strengthen your digestive fire. And I probably have multiple podcast episodes on this for you as well. Getting more seasonal is really a great thing to do, eating the plants of the season, right? Because they are designed to meet us in each season with what we need the most, right? You've got the bitter herbs in the spring, you've got the juicy fruits in the summer, and you've got like the roots and tubers and such in the fall. Like every season makes sense for where our body is at and for the shifts in our microbiome as well. And we all could stand to build our nervous system resilience so we can, learn to trust our body's intelligence. So the deeper work is, this isn't about just some isolated physical, clinical health protocol situation, right? Like this thing that we look at and try to fix. We can also start composting in other areas of our life, right? So instead of cutting people out immediately, ask, what's this person reflecting back to me about my boundaries, right? And instead of trying to suppress or eliminate or purge difficult emotions, maybe just explore what wisdom they might contain. And instead of following rigid protocols, develop your own discernment or work with someone who was willing to help you do that. About what actually supports your unique ecosystem currently. Like, how can you personalize it to where you're at versus trying to follow some ambiguous, rigid protocol to fix a thing that maybe doesn't even make any sense for you in your body right now. All right. Well, I hope you appreciated my intensity there because this is important. And if you want structured support in making this transition, this is exactly what I do with clients in my Minerals and Microbes program, right? We'll focus on building a more unshakable foundation, right? That mineral reserve, building it back up, figuring out what are your microbes doing and what do they need? How do we support them? How do we help them have better function to help you have better function, right? What is your digestive strength right now? What's going on in your system currently, right? So you can help your body naturally maintain its balance without needing to wage war on itself, right? So working with your body's wisdom, not against it, building capacity, building back that terrain so that you have resiliency and robustness so that at the longer you rebuild, the less the imbalances can establish any dominance in your system and take you down, right? Because our bodies are not our enemy, right? They're much more nuanced and honest. And, this approach acknowledges that, your body might feel that it's your enemy. I mean, I'll be honest, there's times when it's why does my body hate me, right? Have you ever said that? But it doesn't, right? It just feels that way. And so it's important to understand what is going on and why so that you can gently redirect yourself towards a more collaborative relationship with your body, right? Because your body isn't your enemy, right? You don't need to cleanse your way to worthiness or fight your way to health. You just need to remember how to tend your inner ecosystem with the same wisdom that nature uses to maintain that balance in every forest, every garden, every thriving environment on Earth. The truth is, your body knows how to heal. Your job is to create the conditions that support the natural intelligence of the body. All right. Well, if you are interested in that level of support, you can find the link in the show notes below. And if you have any questions, just reach out. My email is below. I appreciate you guys for being here. Thanks for listening. I hope you had some potent aha moments from this very passionate episode that I'm leaving you with. And I will see you guys next time. And I'll pick back up that series where I left off. Until then, take good care.